probably. Yeah. Yeah. So it's good to go.
All right.
You should be able to find it 10 or 15 seconds on my page. Okay, they're starting to hook up. Just waiting on Twitch. Let's see. Yeah, the rest of them are good. All right, welcome everybody on the live and the replay. We got Brother Seth in the house, third time in about 10 or 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Test. Let me get this right. I'm all discombobulated. All right, I'm going to put on the intro real quick and allow Seth time to share into his groups and allow people time to come in. We'll be back in a minute, 19 seconds. Powering up on this very eventful weekend, 18th through the 21st. Morgan called this months ago. She said December 18th. She kept saying December 18th. And now we know that there's a kind of a bridge between the 18th and the 21st. And, of course, everything after that. Just a couple of quick announcements. I've been repeating this so everybody knows. David Icke had to cancel in November. He is coming on in the first part of January. We're not going to post it until a couple of days before the show, just for our own protection. and just as a reminder, in all the shows, including that one, this one, any show, you can always watch on SoulSpeaksNetwork.com. You can watch it live on our website. We don't have the archives built yet, but eventually you'll be able to get all the replays as well. So we got Brother Seth in the house, and we were just talking briefly beforehand. Most of it was telepathic and energetic, but wow. Going into last night, I want to go back to, and I know we talked at least once, maybe twice since 1st of October, but there's been a lot of stuff. There's been a pretty considerable mix of different narratives and energies and expressions going on for the last couple of months. Now going into like 2.5 months, and I felt pretty good most of the time. And I'm not saying I feel bad now, but man, some serious energy. He popped out. Some serious energy. You're back.
I think I lost you. Wait,
you're good. You're good. Can you hear? Can you see us?
Yes. No.
Okay. But I was going to say some serious energy came in last night and has continued today. And I just saw a friend of mine post this human resonance from about an hour to 2 hours ago, and it just shot off the charts. I don't know. I actually was sitting on the couch, laying on the couch, and I told Morgan we had a great show this morning with Ethan Fox and Michaela. And I said, man, I don't even know if I can do a show. Like, I'm so glad you only scheduled two a day this month, even against my objections, because I don't know how, and then we just said, I've got a feeling that Seth might have a bead on what's going on right now. So I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're back. Thank you for coming in, honoring us with your presence. And now we can get right to it. What the hell is going on?
It's funny. People are focused on all these different star systems, and it's all so beautiful, but it's one whole big star system. Like, literally this entire galaxy is lighting up from the inside out, and it's affecting all of it. Every solar system, every planetary system, all of it. And we're just here in these little bodies being like, is this really possible?
Yeah.
This actually happened? And I hear you, Todd. Like, same thing. I have just been put through it.
Have you?
Oh my God.
I just told Morgan, I said, I feel like that I'm about to shatter into a million pieces. And I said, I've got nausea and my heart's exploding at the same time. Because you want to eat something? I said, no, I can't. I feel like I'm going to vomit, and so she said to me, I think you're about to rebirth your feminine and your masculine. And she understands things like I can't, but there was something resonant about that, and not as a message for Todd so much as maybe what's happening out there. Does that resonate with you? Does that make any sense to you?
It makes perfect sense. There is a total rebirthing of everything going on at once. And it's so confusing because when you're in your mind, when you're not grounded into the core of your being, you're like, okay, I'm gonna pull over in this direction, now that direction. And it's meant to be confusing. And with so many layers of things, it is very like nausea inducing.
Yeah.
It makes you want to throw up because it's just so much happening at once. But to me, that's like the exact key of like, oh, okay, the more dramatic and intense things get, the more I got to bring a different energy of the opposite or equal to that. Like it's calling me to emit a neutralizing frequency in the face of it. So it's practice. Really is what it is,
You're right. And and we're operating on, I want to say, we know we're multidimensional, but I mean, it seems like at a conscious embodied level, we're now operating on, let's say, several different streams such as the truth coming up, abilities coming up, synchronicities, instant manifestation, and all of the above. Like you were talking about the nausea. We have a permanent fixture in our bedroom now. It's basically a vomit bowl. So we're mixing.
With you.
Right. I mean, we're mixing. Well, this has been going on for several months, but it's really accelerated recently in the energy of sacred sexuality. And again, I'm not talking about the old physical 3D intimacy, but we actually could just be kissing, and all of a sudden one of us pulls away and says, "Get away." I've got to vomit. I had to get up last night and crawl to the bathroom. So that part of it too, what's happening to the body. And I think the other thing that really jumps out over the last 24 hours is, so I did a show yesterday morning, then I did one late in the day. So after the first show, I was getting downloaded on the show big time, like more than normal. And I went outside to Morgan and I said, I got to buy a fire pit. I need a fire pit because I've got all this information sitting here and I can't pull it in. And this is just my way. And, she's like, no, you better not. No, let's hold off on that. So I did the other show. We went to a friend's house last night. We sat around her fire pit and we had a great time, came home. And I get a message this morning from a beautiful sister that lives here in the area that I didn't know. She actually contacted me when we were in Northern California, and just so happens we ended up living here. Well, she came over today and she said, I've got a present for you. And she knocks on the door. She goes, let's go to the back. And we went to the back, and she had a fire pit and logs and kindling and lighters. And so that part of it, and I know this is kind of a funny example, but the instant manifestation part of it is not playing around.
It's so perfect, right? That's why, again, it's practice. What are we practicing? We're practicing integrating these aspects of us that we know we truly are, but that collectively as a species, we've been living without the embodiment of for so long that everybody's like, okay, this can't keep going. What's going to change? Boom, change is what's going to change. And it's just happening so quick. So, but we're made for this. Like we have it within us to do it. And I know, believe me, like the things that have been happening to me over the past 5 days, I'm like literally bringing you to the brink of like, I don't think I can do this.
Yeah.
But like, then I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? the earth, like we're becoming, this embodiment thing is essentially becoming more conscious of what we already are. So with that comes sensitivities that were always there, but we just weren't as sensitive to. Like we're on a planet that's spinning really fast in a bunch of different ways, and the whole thing is spinning. So we're actually feeling physical effects of this massive living system in these little bodies.
Yeah, I've had, you know, just graduated levels of purging, which I mostly have arranged to do in dream state, and there has been physical purging as well, like waking up and I've just got discharge caked on my face, like I've, you know, been walking in a salt desert or something. That was really strong last night, or where I would have to say early this morning and late this morning. So the body, you know, the body is almost screaming, you know, for me. It's like, I don't know what it's saying, but it's going, you know, I just know it's literally physical preparation to take in and embody the things you're talking about.
And if you're honest, you know, if, like, I'm not saying you, but if we are being honest with ourselves and we're tuning out all the noise that everybody's addicted to and keeps empowering, then we feel within us there's this state going on. There's a expansion and a contraction state that keeps happening. It's like we keep becoming aware and then we keep getting set back, and it's just like going through it so much that if you try to ignore it, it just makes it more intense, or more intense things around you happen, because it's all trying to get us to focus inward. For me, what that looks like is I'm like, oh my God, there's no way out of this except for going through it.
Yeah.
So I just do the simple, the basics, breathing rhythmically, just feeling gratitude, feeling grateful for every moment, because yeah, there's some moments that suck, you know, and you're like, man, but you know that feeling of like resistance is just trying to give rise to greater expansion.
Yeah.
And it always happens when we do it, you know?
It does. It does. We were talking about that on the earlier show, about how you have that ebb and flow, and how, you know, it's almost like this kind of point of silence where you have this surrender between you and the universe. And there's a part of you that knows that every time you've done this, there's always an expansion. But the level of surrender that it takes is such a level of detachment that you can't fake it. You're not going to get that lift because you've got to surrender in a way that it doesn't matter what happens. You know, it's just like, wow, it's a totally different lifestyle that we're developing.
And that's exactly it. You said the word developing. And that's the thing. Like, a lot of people feel like, oh my God, it's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And even though it's a rocky road and it's seemingly out of balance and all these issues, if we can get to that place where we're like, all right, I'm holding on for dear life, but I somehow trust it. I know that it road me, that is somehow getting me to where I ultimately have the ability to create something substantive of love, of life, that embodies these greater virtues of humankind in a way that we've been living without for too long. Like, it's doing it. We're doing it. We're totally making it happen.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And then like the you know, the whole you know, being forced, it's almost like so many doors have closed that we have no choice but to be present.
Yes.
And like, we're not getting a choice in that. You know, even if you drift off into, let's say, worries or doubts or the past or the future. I mean, I don't do a lot of that anymore. I really don't. I think I do a pretty decent job of staying present, but I notice when I start to flitter off a little bit, I get boomed right back to where I am. And a big part of that, I think, is the physical ramifications of the transformation that we're going through. I would not be surprised. I had a friend of mine today, Martin McNichol, privately and somewhat publicly shared a situation that he just experienced in the last 24 hours, which was turning into one of his ET aspects, a mantid. And he went into this description about it. And I've had these bouts, and I know Morgan's talked about it, where you become very big, like you were talking about a minute ago, and then you shrink. Like you become very big and then you shrink. And I just wonder if we're going to start seeing these things occur outside of our third eye with our physical eyes in the mirrors that are in our lives.
I think we already are. I know for me, like, there is, like, for everybody, there is this energy that is inside each and every one of us. It's causing all these things to happen in our body. It comes from a source that is so highly organized and so beautiful and so perplexing to the status quo of most human minds. But now we've come to a point where we're being called to acknowledge that part of ourselves. And it's breaking down all of these things that seemingly are painful, but that resist us as individuals knowing that part of ourselves. And so the journey or the process of it can be very discombobulating, but it's actually freeing up aspects of our own physiology so that we're able to perceive, receive, and transmit a greater frequency of what we already are. This wholeness, this completeness. And whether we like it or not, we are being made to love it, you know?
Yeah, this is right on the money too. James Whitkus, we were passing through the eye of the needle. A lot of people have written about this throughout the year. And with that, we leave the long night cycle behind that was below the elliptic. And now we're passing into above the elliptic into a long day cycle. The cycles last around 25,000 years. Now this has been written about, and even going back to some sacred texts, it literally feels like the end of a big giant cycle, which there's narratives that substantiate that, or at least back that up and support it. And like we're in the last, each cycle being made up of multiple cycles, and like we're in the last cycle of the last small cycle that makes up the last part of the big cycle. What are we stepping into? Do you have any feel for what we're stepping into, even between now and the end of the month, and also 2021?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so deeply personal. Like everything that's happening to the collective is happening on a personal level. Yet there's so few who are truly stepping up to the plate and taking full responsibility for it, because it is challenging to do. But the ones who are doing that are feeling the weight of the world. They're literally feeling how intense this actually is. And yes, absolutely. It's the end of the cycle. It's the beginning of the new. It's all that. And it's way beyond all of that. So the new is essentially letting go of all past interpretation, of all stories, of all narratives, of all beliefs, of everything, and becoming so aligned with this energy as it's happening now that it just breaks through all the things that we kind of relied on or stories or narratives. It's doing all of that and it's decimating it, because what is coming through is a clear connection to what we've always been, but have been living without for so long. So it's almost like, it feels like we've already quantum collapsed all of this.
Yeah.
It already happened.
Yeah.
Now the world, it's just catching up in the world around us. And everybody's like, holy crap.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's something that we should take stock in and try to remember when these things are happening, is that it does, and many people have said this, it does, we have already been in a pattern of things happen in the energetic field, and then they manifest in the physical, and this is no different. I'm with you. I firmly believe that we've done this, and now the physical is the last part of us that's on board. I mean, there's been too much intel pulled down from people like yourself over the whatever 7 years I've been active on social media, there's been too many. And I know that everything's not 100% pure, and that the minute we start to express it, it loses some of its perfect alignment and whatever. But there has been enough pieces of the puzzle put out there, and we've all spent enough time in the collective quantum pool to be able to assimilate all this information. And at some level, we know. And one of the things that came into me yesterday, because we are still seeing a lot of polarity, and that's understandable, a lot of contrast as we plow our way out of this. But that is that we know things, but there's a knowing that I'm trying to stay attached to or stay aligned with, which is a knowing of it. And with that knowing, there's a deep, deep humility. Like, there's a big difference between saying, I know this, and I'm speaking for myself, and I know this, and there's this level of humility that's been earned by not just by myself, but by many, many people, especially over the last 7 or 8 years since 2012, in their personal journeys. That I feel like that is a very authentic, real, pure aspect of the human, of the divine human. And I feel like that's actually going to surface in a lot of ways and expand exponentially very quickly. That's my take on it.
Absolutely. It's like a massive purging, because this purity, this like pure life force, this source, it's more coherent. It's more in a state of completeness than the parts that are fragmented or not in a state of coherence or chaotic. But until we like truly begin to embody the part of ourselves that's already whole, then we keep getting dragged through these things that are meant to humble us, because it's deeply humbling, like to go through near-death experiences, to go through things where you don't know the outcome of and you have no choice but to face it with fear and humility and all these things. And then you find out, whoa, I made it through. It's deeply humbling. And it's in living with that knowingness that we get to create something that is much more quality based, that is much more considerate of the things that truly matter, which is our relationship to this energy and our relationship to each other. And then all the things of how we interrelate as these beings that we are on this planet, that we are stewards of. We're supposed to be stewards of. All of this stuff is happening to offer us the potential to start becoming proper stewards of our bodies, of this planet, of everything. And we're doing it. And it seems like it's on the edge, like, oh my God, is it going to happen? Are we going to win? Are we going to lose? All ideas of polarity and all that. But it's like, sit back, relax, no matter how brutal it gets, and know that we've already won. It's already, it's not how you want to use the word won, because we've been so conditioned to compete with ourselves and each other and life and all that to survive. None of that anymore. First, that is the reason everything, even the darkest, most evil things and people that we perceive playing out their little narratives on this planet, they come from this too.
Of course.
So the more that we hold ourselves accountable in the face of that and bring it in, embody it, and then emanate that out into this world unconditionally, no matter what, that energy will make everything coherent eventually. It entrains the things that are not attuned to it, or they leave, or they die, or they whatever. But this is it, and we're being called to be the self-masters of the one who is the calm in the center of the storm. We're not getting torn away by the tornadoes and everything. It's almost like we are under a magnifying glass, like these greater species that are way more advanced than we are, that have technology that is makes our technology in this planet look like child's play. they're seeing if we're going to wake up and realize that the real technology comes from within.
That's
and
right.
if we do that, then we have an opportunity to govern ourselves, to live amongst each other and work together. And if we don't do that, then it's pretty obvious something needs to. So, you know, I'm raising my hand. I'm like, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to do it at all costs, no matter what. I'm willing to surrender, sacrifice, whatever things need to happen. Like, I'm all in because I love this life so much, despite all the challenges, despite all the hardship, despite all the quote unquote evil that I think I'm perceiving with my eyes.
Right.
I know that on the other side of the appearance of all of that is the reality of what it actually is. And that I am rising in love with. So whatever it takes to break through any of that stuff, sign me up. And the more that others have that kind of conviction, that devotion to it,
yeah,
we're gonna find each other like we're doing now.
It's so close you can taste it.
Yes.
You know, like literally you can, like literally walking outside and you see a grid pattern or, you know, different synchronicities and that type of thing. This morning, I got up a little bit before 7 a.m. after probably no more than 3 hours straight sleep. And I spent some time feeling in all these downloads. And then I knew I had to crash because I didn't have a show until 1 o'clock. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to crash. So I did. And I went into this lucid dream, and you just reminded me of this. And in this lucid dream, I was bawling my eyes out. And Morgan was on the peripheral. And I kept turning away because I didn't want her to see me bawling, you know, because I didn't even know what the hell was going on. But what it was a lot of the memories. And I guess I'll just try to put it in layman's terms because it didn't come across in words, but it was a lot of the memories of where I was, all these things I thought I was not, right? So to your point, like you can take the worst person out there, the worst whatever, and you can say, that's not me. But this dream, which was a purging dream, very intense, this was me fully owning are being shown, or both, all of these roles that I played, and I remember in the time right before I reawoke, and for some time after, because I was kind of running both ends of the candle, right, burning both ends of the candle. I came out of probably the deepest embodied parts of it, and sat down with a relative, and they said to me, "Man, you went deep. You really went deep into a lot of things, you know, addiction and a lot of other stuff, intense things." And I was thinking about that after I woke up, and I was thinking about the lucid dream, and I thought, you know, we all went deep. We all went deep. And I remember a transmission I got a few weeks ago, and I was being shown that, hey, you guys are in the home stretch. You are, but in the home stretch, in this game of polarity, of duality, you've thrown in like fire, or like gas on the fire as you're heading down the straight, you know, to the finish line, which is pushing it even further, another deep dive, you know. And I think for me, that's the way I look at what we've done here. And also when you refer to the higher aspects of ourselves that are observing this, you know, I fully believe, and not from an ego standpoint, that they must be looking at us going, holy shit. I mean, they have lit this mother up, you know?
There's no way not to at this point. I mean, you can only live out of tune with reality for so long before reality comes in and says, you know what, we need to adjust these knobs here. Like, let's, but it's, you know, those who are taking responsibility for life, like we've been saying, and doing their best to step up and process the intense amount of frequencies that are coming through and just, you know, seemingly messing everything up, are becoming aware that all these people and things that are happening on the planet are unresolved aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? Because we don't want to even get caught up in the story of what we think that means, right? So it's this continual coming up against, becoming aware of it as it is and letting it go, and just continuously going through that over and over, because it will resolve itself as long as we trust the part of ourselves that's in tune with it to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a blind faith thing in the beginning, but if you don't know how you know, but you just know,
That's
like
right.
you said, that somehow something is doing this. And if you keep that knowing alive and well long enough, and you keep going into it, the view of what has always been there, but that our human senses have been too atrophied to be able to see, our human senses, the muscles of our perception gets stronger, and we start being able to see what is seemingly out of view.
Yeah.
Like you said before, the invisible, it's becoming visible.
True.
It's happening.
True. Yeah. And that's a very good point. Because we start to have, and I was even doing this, there's no coincidences, right? So this had been last night, sitting in here by myself for a few minutes, and I was reflecting on, because I had read something, I was reflecting on what was once my perception as the deepest, darkest moments, right? And this was when I was on the streets, and when I was, burning the candle at both ends, and waking up, but also bawling out at the same time. In these moments where you say, I've had enough of this, I'm here to serve, but like, I can't do this, those moments. And I was looking back at them. In fact, Morgan brought it up last night. That's what it was, with our friend. I started to think about it here, and then we went to my friend's house, and they were talking about something similar. And, but I started to look back at those moments. And first of all, there's absolutely no charge. And second of all, I started to look at it like the higher, like we're talking about the higher aspects of ourselves looking at us now, going proportionate to their level of technology and awareness. They went from, here all the way to here, I mean, like they've traveled traversed this huge, this huge expanse of universal real estate that proportion to their environment is just mammoth, man. I mean, it's just like, wow. So I think that is a part of what I get from what you were saying, that reflection that we can now look back and see the perfection of where we've been. The other thing that I see that's happening, which is not, like some kind of new idea, but this thing about the truth coming to the surface. Like, there is this thing going on right now, and I see it, and I'm sure others do too, that anything that's not real, no matter how much you talk about it being real, no matter how much you try to say this is who I am, or this is what this is, if it's not 100% non-duality, meaning it's 100% Trinity energy, it's not going to stand, and they're dropping like flies.
I know. I am. Who isn't like it? We're witnessing this taking place so quick. Oh, you went out for a second.
You're good.
All right. It's unbelievable the rate at which it's happening, and again, it keeps bringing us to this place. Let me give you an example, okay, of my own life. Like, I've had insomnia on and off for a lot of my life. And it started happening to me when I was really young. And the reason it happened was because I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, something is happening between my waking state and my sleeping state where I go unaware. I'm unaware of what happens. And I started to have a problem with it. I was like, literally, there's something wrong. I'm missing something between waking and sleeping. And it started to freak me out. I was like, my God, I need to figure out what this is. Like, what's there? What am I missing? Because if I'm missing something, I feel incomplete. I don't feel like I'm whole. but that created a problem. It created insomnia. I wasn't sleeping. It was beating me up, and I was going on and on throughout my life, like battling with it, until finally I realized, oh my God, it's wanting me to be present with all of it. So because I had developed this habit of being afraid if I was going to fall asleep or not, I had all this fear and anxiety, and all this stuff would come up, and I would try to suppress it, but it just wouldn't go away. You know, whatever means of suppressing it. I tried everything you can imagine, from drugs to cold showers, all of it, and none of it worked long until I began being like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to sit, be present with whatever the problem is, and just be okay with it and be calm about it. And as a result of doing that, I began to become aware, like, oh, my body's going to sleep. My body's actually going to sleep as I'm getting more calm, and I'm trusting that this is all perfect, even though I had a hand in creating it. And then all of a sudden, the body would go asleep, but my mind would be awake. And I realized there's this dimension in between sleeping and waking that was always there. I was just missing it because I was stuck in all these fear-based stories that I was telling myself about what I thought was going on. And none of it was actually real. And it was all actually constructed to bring me to this place where I could find this crack between who I think I am and what I actually am. And when I trusted my own ability to go into that crack, that break, that whatever you want to call it, what was there was this presence of me from a more complete form, more whole. It wasn't separate, it wasn't alien, it wasn't it was me as I truly am. It was the soul that is animating this being, causing this life to be in this body. But I built a conscious bridge of coherence, you could say, between the part of me that I truly am and this limited human perspective that me and you and our whole species have become addicted to. So in many ways, we're all going through our own thing where we're coming up against our own stories and narratives and fear and anxiety, and we're being gifted this golden opportunity to trust it, to be at peace with it, to just somehow find within us the ability to know that all is well. And now we're at a point where it's just going to keep doing it until we finally get to that surrender place. And in it is, like you said, that humbleness, that reverence, all these higher virtues that we know we have the capability to embody, but that we haven't collectively as a species for quite a while, and it's just not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So this is the birthing process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's tricky because there's like so many of us are where we are and have done the things we've done over the past few years, which didn't make a whole lot of sense in conventional wisdom, respect to conventional wisdom or society or family or many other, standards. But we followed it. And so now we're getting to this, what the guy said, eye of the needle part, where you drain the water from the bathtub and it starts slurping its way down at the very end and it's pulling it down with more force. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say there's a lot. There is a strong feeling in terms of the impact on the human aspect. Like, wow, this is, like I'm being directed to go this way and do this or do that. And the human's like going, white knuckles going, wait a minute. Can we think about it? No, you can't. Now you can't. Like it's moving so fast, you can't even think about it. And I think that I'm really glad you brought that up, the story about the insomnia, because one of the things I've noticed over the last few weeks, or really maybe even about 3 months, more, and certainly for myself since about March, but more and more people are talking about their lucid dreams. Several people have told me I never remember my dreams, but for some reason I'm having all these lucid dreams lately. And I have a feeling, and this isn't a knowing, this is just a feeling, that that what you're describing about what your whole experience was in terms of your expanding your awareness and your experience through, integrating your issue with insomnia and so on. I feel like that link when we go into dream state is going to carry much more influence in our lives as we go forward, because it's full of information, it's full of code, and it's full of reality. Really, it is. And now, can we just dump that on to the human mind and the human aspect solely and go, okay, here we go, let me just hand it to you? I don't think we could. But I think, like everything else that's occurring, we're getting spoon-fed. Now the spoon is getting bigger and bigger, and it's coming faster and faster. And I don't know, at some point, I said this last time we talked, I think it's like, you got a big balloon and somebody sticks a pin in it. At some point, I can't see how everything wouldn't just, not in a bad way, but the veil would just shatter. Like I feel today, like I told Morgan, I feel like I'm going to shatter in a million pieces.
I love that analogy, because, and here's the thing, like with, a lot of people, like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What are the next few months going to be like? So many people are like, oh, but does it matter really? Because again, we're taking ourselves out of this state of presence where we're actually being called to do this work in, because we're afraid or we're anxious or we're having some internal pathology. Like me and my insomnia, I was creating this issue. I was making it into something bigger than it was, instead of just being totally present with it as it was. Now, it was all perfect. I had to throw in all those pieces and confuse it and mix it up in order to find my way through it. But this need to know, okay, we don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen. Beauty of it. Because if we knew, then we would be like, oh, like the way I see it is like, nobody knows what's going to happen, but I do know that no matter what, I am going to do everything to keep going in that direction of being the highest embodiment of my human self. I'm going to do whatever it takes to the end.
Man, these synchronistic download in tone form have been increasing on these shows. They've always happened, but like over the last few days, as I've dragged myself through these shows, and it's never been a problem, but they pop up every time truth's being spoken. I wrote a poem back in the days when I was on the street, and it was something like, although it may be uncomfortable at times, I will ride in the direction of my soul. I will honor every human being as equal to me. I come from the same father. I will honor myself as equal to every human being. I come from the same mother. And that was speaking from the place that you're speaking. Like, you don't know. I mean, I'm on the streets at the time, and I don't know shit. I don't know anything, right? I mean, I've lost everything. Literally, I did the fast track of detachment course, and the only thing I knew was to follow the direction of my soul, no matter where the hell it took me. And that's what I was referring to earlier. Like, it's because of the way, the speed of the code and the volume of the code that's coming in, and the rapidity, it's just coming in faster and faster. We're getting to a point where everyone's, I think, is going to accept the reality is we can't know it. It's not about knowing anything. That's why I think the labels and the roles are dropping away, and the different energies that we create in the illusion. I mean, I think people are going to become uncomfortable with saying I'm this and I'm that and I'm this and I'm that. It's not about, for me anyway, it's even back then, going back to the time of that poem, it was like, okay, well, who am I? And the universe would be like, with a megahorn, be like, who are you not? Like, why don't you find out what you're not so you can find out what you are? which, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, and I see a lot of this going on with everybody in terms of, as we go into this eye of the needle thing, the deepest core belief systems, like the deepest, you could say the deepest wounds or the deepest program, but I'm seeing a lot of that out there.
It is. It's coming up, and it's okay to have grief. Like, we're coming into this place where it's okay to feel everything as it is, and in fact, it's encouraged.
Yeah.
The more we feel things, even if it brings us to tears, even if it makes us angry, even like no matter what comes up, feel it, allow it to come up, let it be what it's going to be, because there's a mix-up going on, or the appearance of a mix-up. Like, who am I? Everybody's stuck on who we think we are.
Yeah.
When the reality is, we're not a who am I, we are a what am I? And what we are is this energy that's animating our being. So that's the primary expression. Once we start adapting or acclimatizing ourselves to be able to perceive this primary expression, then who we are gets to become a secondary expression of that primary. Like, everything's reversing back so that the soul is taking the lead, and then the ego becomes the humble servant, not the other way around, which is how it's been for a while, quite a while. And the new story is that there is no story.
Yeah.
It's just literally this great infinite being that is on the cutting evolutionary edge of its own development. And we are so in alignment with that if we're willing to step up and go along with the contractions and expansion.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt for many years, and this is not Todd, this is Todd as the conduit, particularly when I would do radio shows and I would just turn on music and I would just start freestyling it, that we're, again, at the tail end of this big cycle. And this has been a grand experiment, right?
Yeah.
And that the payoff is that this very dense dimensional realm is actually reaching or becoming part of the dimensional universal family. In other words, like for instance, like the illusion of death will actually, as a result of this graduation, will actually disappear. And that this existence that we have, and I'm just saying, this is what's come through to me. I'm not saying it's gospel, but I just see where, like, we become a perpetual dimension that is more characteristics or more has the characteristics of the dimensional fields that we've all engaged in our own experiences. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like it's a graduation, a coronation, a celebration, and the room is filling up more and more and more with our aspects.
It's such a necessary and beautiful and important time. And, again, like, yeah, it can be scary. It can be all these things, but it's okay. Like, we're allowed to feel fear. We're allowed to feel all these things. And this is how we evolve. This is how we go through. It's not like we're supposed to just ascend, become these super geometrically complex, divine, eternal beings, and that's it. We're being given the opportunity to know ourselves as we truly are, which is more in alignment with that, and integrate that, which you said, it is this cutting edge evolutionary thing. It's an opportunity. It's this beautiful potential for growth and expansion and expression of life in a way that may have never been expressed before. And
yeah, that's what I see. That's what I see. I see our contribution, like every trip or every realm experience has a certain unique contribution to the expansion of the universe. And I really feel like for us, it's the human emotion being infused into the alchemical process, the human heart, you might say, the human side of the human heart. And I feel like that what has been our weaknesses is because of like the things that you were talking about earlier, going back and looking back at what happened then and seeing it for what it was in its highest form of perfection. But like our greatest weaknesses are now becoming our greatest strengths as we engage them in unity consciousness. You know, a lot of times we think about unity consciousness and it's, oh, me and you are one, and me and Jennifer and Sasha and Cindy, we're all one. But the unity consciousness for me, or my involvement that has been more significant, and thank you, Morgan Lee, has been the unity consciousness of my experience, like the unity consciousness of these things that I was branded and stigmatized, not because others said it, but because I believed it, you know? So it's like gathering all these pieces. We talk about gathering all these multidimensional aspects and bringing them in, but what about all the fragmented human aspects? You know, like those are gold. To be able to look back and say, yeah, I was incarcerated, or I did this, or I did that. And, you know, I did some things that I am not afraid to talk about anymore, but I couldn't talk about for a long time out of shame and guilt. You know, these things are now part of equal parts at my monad, the Todd Medina monad, or whatever my name is in the heavens, or whatever, where everybody has an equal seat. Those things that represented shame and blame and all that, they're now golden fixtures in my composition. And I really feel like that this isn't just Todd or a few individuals or couples, or I really feel like that this is what's happening to everybody. And I think the evidence of that I'm hearing from people is that those, they said, oh, I didn't think they were awake, and now they're all telling me this and telling me that. A friend of mine told me that he can't believe how fast his family members are waking up and talking about stuff. And then I had the friend that came over and dropped off the fire pit. She is a major in the military reserves, and then she has a full-time job as a civil servant in a military environment. So she's military 25, 26 days a month. And she said, and I said, how's it going? She said, Todd, you wouldn't believe, with all the craziness, there's so many people like woke, like in the daily, you know, the daily activity in the military environment she's in, which, yeah, I think we're moving a lot faster than we thought we were.
That's it, because despite all these systems, despite everything that's happening, we as a species share more similarities than we do differences.
Yeah.
And those similarities are so profound and abundant, like the human heart, our ability to have empathy and love for one another and for other living beings. When we focus on that and make that a priority instead of nitpicking all these little separatist ideas, then that increases this unity consciousness within us. And I agree, it's like it's happening within us first. It's literally up to us to take responsibility for how we perceive it. And then when we do that, and if we're honest with it, it's like this constant process of expansion and contraction. But when we break through that by being with it and allowing it to happen, then those greater virtues that people are just like realizing are self-evident become self-evident to the most of us. It's the 100th monkey effect. It's morphogenetic fields. It's when the 4-minute mile, right? When one person does it, everybody else is like, I can do it too. And the bottom line is like, we all love each other. Look, we know we do. If anybody on this call right now was brought right as their energy field was leaving their body, all of their human emotions and memories would come to the surface, and they would remember that despite all the separate things that they spent most of this life cycle focusing on, that they actually loved and felt connection, and that was a much more predominant trait to their soul than they even had any idea about from a human perspective. But it's too late at that point. Then you're leaving, you're going out of it, and you're like, oh, I'm going to come back, and this time I'm going to
go back. That's what I always say. I'm going to be the first one to raise my hand and go back. Last subject before we head out. and this might be getting the cart before the horse. I'm not saying this or putting this on the table for what might be the typical conversation, but the word androgynous, a lot of times when this is brought up, people are talking about, basically, getting away from the male and the female, masculine, feminine, that we're all going to be androgynous or we're all androgynous. We're in an incredible experience and experiment here that has been created by all of us and all of our aspects and all of our teams and the universe and all that. And such a big part of it is that I think is coming into greater and greater appreciation as time goes on is the physicality of it. So when I say the word androgyny, I'm like going, what the hell is that going to look like? Now I'm speaking energetically. I'm speaking about, we've talked about for years, and even in the sacred text, the divine union, sacred marriage within yourself. And I've seen people go, oh, I've gotten there. I don't know anyone that's gotten there. Okay. They're getting there. Right. But what I'm trying to say is it's like everything else becoming embodied and being physicalized. And I don't mean we're all going to turn into neutral genders. I mean, what is that going to look like in terms of our relationships and in terms of our energetic interactions with each other and our creations? I mean, it's literally the golden child in the flesh, right? I mean, the golden child energy isn't male or female. It is a balanced, sacred union energy or consciousness. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but to me, that's popped in my field for the last 3 or 4 days. I thought, I wonder what that's going to look like, which is probably why I'm about to break up into a million pieces.
Well, it's a beautiful thing to consider, and it's a beautiful thing to be aware of. And, the way I perceive it would be like the further away you could say that we think ourselves or believe ourselves to be from the source, the more these polarities and dual aspects come into play. But then when we suddenly start to realize like, whoa, I'm far away from source, or I think I'm far away from source, then we start thinking that, these polarities or these dual aspects of life are a problem, when really we're making it into a problem. And it's not a problem at all. What it actually is an opportunity to create, for creativity to flourish and grow. But it requires us being in alignment with ourselves and not being stuck in that temporary appearance of duality that so many are. And then you're not, I mean, I have a male body, but my soul it's when you're talking about the source of life, it's everything.
Of course. Yeah.
Everything. So we can still be healthy men and women or whatever we are, but embody the soul truth as our primary expression. And then it doesn't matter. Like, it's like you said, what are we creating with? And what can we create? That's what I'm more interested in. Like, meet the people.
Yeah, like what's the like, for instance, like with someone like me or you, what is my expanded fulfilled potential of my divine feminine within myself? What kind of impact is that going to have in my relationships, in my creations, in the way I build things, in the way you know what I mean? I mean, I can see only further alignment, but given the fact that every time we think we got a beat on this thing, something comes in and explodes it. And I mean this in a positive, energetic manner, So I don't know. It was just food for thought, but I don't know if you want to talk to anything before we get out of here, and maybe also just kind of remind us of where we can find you. And if you've got anything coming up or anything you want to do, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just want everybody who's listening and paying attention to learn to listen to themselves more, trust their own process, their own perception, whatever is coming up, really make that the priority of where you get your guidance. And if you're not able to get guidance from it right now, set the intention that whatever it is that is speaking to you and through you is going to be a greater teacher than anybody or anything externally in this world. And if you set your sights on that and you focus on it and you keep thinking, feeling, taking behaviors, actions, all different things that are aligned with that intention to become aware of whatever this guiding force is that's animating your being, it's a mathematical impossibility that at some point that energy, that force will intervene into your normal waking consciousness, and you will be aware of it, and you will know how to conduct yourself in this body, on this planet, around others, in accordance with it. And that is much more in alignment with what the new normal.
Yeah, the new normal. That's right.
I mean,
well, the abnormal is the new normal, based from the human perspective.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you for having me.
Always like getting together with you. It's a very, very natural thing. I enjoy it. But I just want to send all blessings to you and to yours. And thank you again for coming in and honoring us with your presence and taking time. And I'll see you on the other side of 2020.
All right. Thank you.